Page 84, The Times of Dave Brubeck. Dave Brubeck was a jazz pianist and composer. It's neat stuff. In this piece, let's talk about it just a bit. The main thing about this piece is they're introducing the idea of changing time signatures in the middle of a piece. Time signatures can change whenever in a piece. I mean, it has to be at a bar line, but however, it could go back and forth. You get them all the time. This starts out at 3/4 time at the beginning, but if you look at the second ending, the last measure of the second line, you see it's changed to 4/4 time. So the last two lines on this page are 4/4 time. That throws some people. Just keep in mind that when time signatures change like that, there's got to be something, a common beat somewhere between them. It might be a quarter note, an eighth note, or something, but the something is going to remain the same tempo. In other words, in this case, it's going to be the quarter note. However fast a quarter note goes here, at the beginning, it's got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Those are quarter note beats. That's going to remain the same, so when you go to 4/4 time, you just keep that quarter note going. You're just counting to 4 instead of 3. So the third line down there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. See, the quarter note beat is the same. Throw some people. They think, well, now I got to do 4/4 time in the same amount of time I did 3/4 time, and that's not correct. That's not even close. No. Let's talk about this a little deeper. Starting with the right hand, look at the chord at the beginning. G, A flat, C. And this is typical of Dave Brubeck's sound. Watch the fingering. Next measure, 3/5. Not a lot to point out. I just want to make sure you're getting in all these accidentals, because the key itself is in C major. There's no sharps or flats, but there's a lot of flats in this thing. Second line, look at the first ending there. Fingering wise, 2, 1. 2, 1, 2, 3, 5. And this puts you in position to go back up to the top to get that chord. Third line down, just finger it the way they're telling you to. 4/2. Now, jazz. We're going to swing these eighth notes on this jazz. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, etc. Last line, they're saying 1, 3. Just watch the fingering. The fingering they're showing you is okay. Watch the accents. On the last line, the first two measures, you have accents, notes. Just bring out the ba-ba-da-ba. It's like a syncopation here. And that's typical of jazz. Left hand. At the beginning, watch this rhythm. 1, and that is an A flat, a C, and an E flat. So it's here. Now they're saying 4 on that, and that's actually a good fingering because that's how you'd finger that chord. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and. Then the next measures, they're just quarter notes. Now keep that same fingering you used on the first measure on these other measures. So the first measure is here. Second measure is 4, 3, 1. Next one is 5, and then again a 4, 2, 1. And then at the end, you have a choice. You could experiment on this a little bit in the left hand. The last two measures of the first line. You can stay here in this position for the next to the last measure, and then come down to this position for the last measure. It's the same chord, it's just different inversion. Or you can start that third measure of the first line this way, and then on the second eighth note come down to here, to 4 and then a 2-1, and that puts you in position for the next measure. So it's easier, it might be easier to go from here to here to here than to go from here to here. You have to work that out yourself. But I like that fingering on the last 2 measures. Something to that, like that, to get through that. Second line, again, a 4-2-1 on the chord. Second ending, I recommend a 1 on the last note of the second ending there on the second line. So I can use a 2 on the first note of the third line. And then on the third measure of the third line, I would do a 3 on those C's, 2, and then a 1 on the D's, and then cross over 3. And then the last line, I do a 2 on the first note. And then their fingering is good until the last measure. You're in this position. I recommend the last measure is a 3-2-1. You're in this position. You're in this position and you're just stretching out to this position. So the last 2 measures. You can work out the fingering for yourself, but try these fingerings I've suggested. Just pencil them in and see what you think. Now also on the last 2 lines you've got accents in the left hand and they're important. So it's like 1 and 2. Go ahead and accent the fourth beat. Now on the third measure over they're telling you to put an accent on the first beat. That's unusual. Usually it goes on the second beat, but now in the last line, accent on the 8th note. And I recommend putting an accent in the last measure on that E. You work out the rhythm and the fingering for each hand, and then you put them together. And you have to go real slow on this because it can be tricky. At the beginning it's 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 2, 3, 1. So work it out really slowly and carefully. Then once you have all that, you can go back and add the pedal. And the pedal on this, you're only really pedaling the first 2 lines. I don't recommend pedaling the last line at all. Going to push the notes down and then the pedal. And I'm going to change it at each measure. Now I like to have a break in between the phrases. So at the end of the first line I'd lift the pedal with the hand so there's a little bit of silence before going on. Starting with the last measure of the first line. That's really about it on the pedal. I don't recommend pedaling these last lines at all because that would be blurry. That just ruins the mood. Keep it light, and the pedal makes it way too heavy on those. Now, I haven't talked too much about dynamics here. I'm going to let you do the dynamics. You're starting out at kind of a medium loud for the first couple of lines, and then when you get down to the third line, you bring it down a little bit. Keep it down until the 4th line, then you can crescendo back up. But there's not a lot of difference between a medium loud and a medium soft. But again, you can experiment with these dynamics, improvise a little bit, and see what you think with them. And that's about it for this piece. As far as the speed, it's andante, which is kind of a nice leisurely stroll. I think I've been doing an andante in most of these demonstrations. With the play with me that I want to do with you now, though, we're going to go really slow because we want to double check the notes and the rhythms and do this one hand at a time until you're pretty sure you have the right notes and rhythms. So it starts out in 3/4 times, so I'm going to give us 3 counts. Put your hands where they go. Well, you know where they go. You know the drill by now, I hope. Here and here. Foot's on the pedal. Here we go. You give us 3 counts. I said that, didn't I? Never mind. 1, and ready, and go, and... Repeat. Now there's an acoustic jamming part at the bottom. I would like to play that and have you play what you just played. And I'm going to speed this up a little closer to performance speed so we can play this together. So go ahead and put your hands where they go. Here. I'll give us 3 counts. 1, and ready, and go, and...